welcome to the Horror Next Door. This is everything we watched in April of 2022. Links to our Letterboxd accounts are in the description box below. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing.
Children of the Corn from 1984, which we watched on a rented Netflix disc because Psycho didn't want to watch my VHS copy. I remember this movie from when I was a kid. I was super duper young when it first came out, but I think it was on TV quite a bit or something because Isaac scared the crap out of me when I was little and Malachi was pretty creepy too. So this is one of those situations where it's creepy kids and that's always pretty freaky. I mean, the idea of kids just rising up against the adults and getting rid of all of them is insane. I really like this movie. I can see why some people don't, because it has really cheesy dated effects and I guess some of the acting might not be people's taste, but I just think the casting is amazing. That John Franklin guy that plays Isaac, I mean, that was perfect casting, and I love little Job. He's my favorite character. I really like both him and Sarah, and rewatching this as an adult again, I just get reminded of how super duper annoying Bert was. Just a total jerk. He was kind of mean to the Linda Hamilton character that I can't remember the name of. He was bossing these little children he didn't even know around. I just don't like him. So I just think Job is the real hero of this whole thing. Anyway, I definitely recommend this, especially, if you're a Stephen King fan. So
I've never been a huge Children of the Corn fan. I haven't seen any of the sequels. I've only seen this first one, and we're just now deciding, you know what, let's watch them all. So we're slowly making our way through the series. That being said, I would recommend this movie, but I've just never really been on the whole Children of the Corn bandwagon. I'm not a huge fan of it, but it is creepy, the first one at least, and it is enjoyable. I will say this, I think I remember more about the South Park episode that they did where they pretty much parodied this entire storyline. I love South Park and I think it's funny, so if you like South Park or if you haven't seen it in a while, you should seek out that episode. It's funny. Night's End from 2022, which we watched on Shudder. This movie we talked about in one of our trailer videos, and the movie started off great, was really cool, but about halfway in, it kind of got a little corny, for lack of a better term, and by the end, I just wasn't into it anymore. I don't really recommend this movie. Sorry.
yes, it was kind of another disappointment for us with the, we're excited to watch this because of the trailer, and we kind of rushed to go watch it because we thought it looked so cool. And it was interesting, the character study of this guy and his habits as a shut-in and everything, but it did a complete 180. It got so super wacky, wonky, weird. The tone completely shifted and neither of us appreciated it. Shout out to my man Michael Shannon, because he's pretty much always my favorite thing in whatever he's in. He's barely in this, so that's not a good enough reason to watch it, and I unfortunately cannot recommend it either. Destined to be Ingested from 2008, which we watched on DVD in a crappy horror movie pack. I don't even know if I would call this a horror movie, because even once things start happening that are supposed to be horror, they're just so poorly done and corny that it's still more of a comedy, except this movie was so bad that it wasn't even funny. I gave this the lowest possible rating that I could on Letterboxd because I hated everything about it, from the casting to the storyline to the dialogue to the acting, just the plot, everything. It was a complete mess. I definitely do not recommend it at all.
Yeah, I feel like this is one of those movies where somebody was like, hey, let's make a movie, and then they just started making a movie. They didn't really have a full-fledged idea, and then halfway into production they said, you know what, let's make it a horror movie. So the first almost hour of the movie is not really a horror movie. It's just, I don't even know what you call it. And then all of a sudden it's kind of sort of being like a horror movie. They kind of do the whole tribe thing,
like Cannibal Holocaust type.
Like Cannibal Holocaust, but it's just super bad. This movie is on Tubi if your heart desires to see it.
Don't do it.
But do not recommend it. Arang from 2006, which we rented on a Netflix disc. I remember this movie having a really intricate storyline, and it was really messed up, and I do recommend it, but I'll let Hellcat talk about it more.
Based on the synopsis for this film, I did think it was going to be a little bit more of like a serial killer type thing. I didn't know it was going to go in a somewhat supernatural direction at all. Even though I still did enjoy the movie, that disappointed me just slightly, simply because I was thinking it was a little bit more of like Memories of Murder style thing, where the detectives were trying to find a killer. But regardless, I did overall definitely like the movie and would recommend it. I think the lead detective woman is a badass, and I loved her. Like Psycho said, the storyline is pretty intricate. If you're not paying attention, it's really easy to get lost and probably dislike the movie because you'll either be confused or just won't be as invested in the characters. But I think that some of the twists and the reveals, especially towards the very end, were pretty gnarly. Play or Die from 2019, which we watched on good old Tubi. This is us trying to watch as many escape room movies as we can, being severely disappointed once again. The plotline of this and the twist and everything was actually very similar to another escape room movie that we watched. We think it was the Escape Puzzle of Fear one that I'm referring to here when I say the plotlines are similar. Really, again, the only interesting thing about this movie is the twist, but it's also so ridiculous that you're like, really? I just think that a lot of the characters were so unlikable. This movie suffers the curse of the escape room movies where the puzzles are so ridiculous and so specific that no average person would be able to solve them. And then you toss in literal physical harm and or death should you not solve the puzzles correctly, which in a way sort of spoils the twist because it's like, why would any escape room doing business ever kill people, So anywho, I obviously don't recommend this movie.
So not only was I excited to see this one because it was another escape room movie that we're trying to watch as many of them as we can, but also the cover has a mask on it, and it looks like it's a combination of like a Jason hockey mask and a Hannibal Lecter mask. I guess a Jason hockey mask with a Hannibal mouth on it or something. I don't know. But if I recall correctly, there's literally nobody in this movie wearing that mask, or that mask does not appear at all in the movie. It was kind of disappointing, just like the movie. I love the idea of them going into like a building, not just the fact that it's an asylum, but just any building, and there's like multiple rooms that they have to go into and figure out their way out of all the escape rooms and things. That's a cool concept, but all the stuff that Hellcat mentioned, but on top of it, some of them are timed, and it's even more ridiculous because it's like you got to do all this crazy shit and you got like 30 seconds or 60 seconds, and it's like no one's going to be able to solve that. Sorry, this is ridiculous. It's like they were trying to rip off Saw and sort of have like an escape room thing at the same time, and they didn't succeed. Do not recommend. Sorry. Children of the Corn 2, The Final Sacrifice from 1992, which we watched on Amazon Video. And as the title says, this is the last Children of the Corn movie they ever made. Oh, never mind. They made like 20 more of these.
Psych.
But it was funny watching the trailer for this before we watched the movie, and it's like the final whatever the hell they say in the trailer. It's like, yeah, okay. I don't know, just couldn't get into this one. Definitely not anywhere near as good as the first one, obviously. It had some okay parts, but overall, don't recommend it.
Yes, they went down some pretty cliche horror movie paths on this, and it was really annoying. I think one of the things about Children of the Corn is that it's not really comparable to anything else. I mean, I guess that you could equate it to, okay, couple enters a small town and weird shit happens, but I don't know. I just feel like there were so many generic things about this. I especially felt like the relationships that the main characters, a dad and his teenage son, the relationships that they had with the female characters in this felt so forced and so weird, just flat out unnecessary. This series is supposed to be about creepy kids, and they're anti-adults based on this religion or whatever you call it, so it needed to just be that. Also, the fact that John Franklin wasn't in this, I feel like says a lot, and it shows. He made Children of the Corn what it was, and I do completely 1000% give the replacement actor that they put in here sort of as a placeholder for Isaac credit. He was epic. Like, he was trying so hard and he was the best part of this movie, but I still definitely do not recommend it. Sorry. Ominous from 2009, which we watched on DVD in a crappy horror movie pack. There's really nothing ominous about this. It takes forever to get to any kind of a horror element. When it does become supernatural or paranormal or whatever you want to call it, the effects are terrible. It's never scary, ever. It's really, really boring. I do not recommend this movie. I think the only good thing about it was the explanation of why the ghosts are there, and it was a complete bummer drag, like womp womp, you know? Definitely don't recommend it.
This is another one of those movies where as soon as I get done watching it, apparently it just evaporates from my mind. I don't really remember much about it. I just remember a bunch of people freaking out about stuff and nothing really happening and no one really is in any danger. I don't recommend it. It was kind of a tough one to get through. I think it took 2 nights to watch the whole thing. Slumber from 2017, which we watched on Tubi, but apparently it's not on there anymore, but you can watch it on Amazon Prime. This is another movie starring Maggie Q, another horror movie starring Maggie Q, which is just mediocre and not really that good. There is a lot of random scenes in here where people are sleepwalking and there's some creepy shit going on, and that to me has always been like a weird subject, just people walking around in their sleep and doing whatever. Like that's weird. So I thought that was cool, but other than that, didn't really enjoy it. Do not recommend.
Yeah, I really only put this on because Tubi said it was going to expire in whatever amount of days, and I like Maggie Q, but she really is in a lot of... I'm sorry, she's just in a lot of bad movies. I don't know if she's making these decisions or if she needs a new agent or what, because I really like her. I just feel like she could do better. Anyway, there were definitely some cool parts in this when they were being controlled by the demon thing or whatever. Some of the things that they were doing, putting themselves and or each other in danger, and by they, I mean it's an entire family that Maggie Q, the sleep doctor, is trying to help, but the demon is like focusing on the son in the family. She just becomes really engrossed in what's happening to them and invested in trying to help them because the son reminds her of her brother that passed away when she was really young and stuff. That's not a spoiler. It's like the first thing you see in the movie. So it's hard to say that I straight up wouldn't recommend this because it did have cool elements. But about halfway, maybe 3/4 of the way through, it started getting just really cheesy and kind of annoying. Basically, after she decided to like be with the family and start helping them, the movie got way more lame. So I don't really recommend it. But if you're like a Maggie Q super fan, or you're just super into, you know, like sleep paralysis, sleepwalking weirdness, then you can check it out. The Ridge from 2005, which we watched on DVD in a crappy horror movie pack, and crappy indeed. This is one of my least favorite movies that we have ever watched on any of the crappy horror movie packs, including Destined to be Ingested. I would rather watch Destined to be Ingested again, because at least there's stuff to laugh at. This movie is just straight up annoying. All of the characters are terrible. The dialogue is insanely obnoxious. It feels like there was no script. They were just completely improvising. Then the killer finally gets introduced after what feels like light years, and he's the lamest thing in the universe. This movie sucks so bad. Do not watch this, please. What is this tagline? Evil Dead meets Friday the 13th. What? That could not be more inaccurate. Get out of my face.
I know everybody has to get their start somewhere. I'm not sure if this is the first movie these people ever worked on or if it's the 5th or something, but I will say this, the camera work in this movie I feel like was really well done. But that being said, I just think the story was a little lackluster and it kind of took a while for things to start, get moving. So in that regard, I do not recommend it.
A little lackluster.
Choose or Die from 2022, which we watched on Netflix streaming. I feel like the trailer for this movie looked really cool. I was pretty hyped in seeing it. That being said, the movie started off pretty good. just like Night's End, somewhere towards the midway point, maybe hour mark, somewhere around there. I just feel like the movie kind of just stalled out for me and just kind of went in a direction that I didn't really enjoy. It has some great scenes, some great ideas. I just feel like the overall storyline could have been a little better. Also, the alternate title for this is Cursor, and it's written like the game in the movie, and I really feel like Netflix should have released this as Cursor and not Choose or Die, because there's too many of those truth or dare or this or that. Like,
didn't we just talk about a movie called Play or Die or something? The
Yeah.
Asylum one?
Yeah, Play or Die, which we just talked about.
Yeah.
Choose or Die is a little corny of a title. Cursor would have been better. I do recommend it though. It's just kind of average.
Well, I know I liked this movie more than Psycho, and I'm pretty sure I liked it more than most people did. I don't know if it's just because I have so many nostalgic feelings for old school video games or what, but I thought it was a really fun movie with some really cool and original ideas. I guess there were a couple little things that I didn't really like about it, but I did like the very, very end, the surviving character's motivation for doing what they end up doing. And that's all I can say so I don't spoil anything. There were just some really cool visuals and some really effed up situations or decisions that people had to make to get through this. I definitely do recommend it. Brahms, The Boy 2 from 2020, which we watched on a rented Netflix disc, which Psycho rented, and I told him not to because I did not want to watch this stupid movie just based on the stupid trailer. I already could tell just from the trailer alone that it was going to be ridiculous and erase everything that they established in the first movie, and that's pretty much what it does. No clue why Katie Holmes did this. I mean, I know she's not some big Angelina Jolie superstar or anything, but she's a pretty known name, even if it's only for being married to Tom Cruise for some time. So I don't know if she was just bored or what, but yeah, I do not recommend this at all.
She probably needed to pay off some bills. I only rented this out of just OCD of completionist type whatever. Saw the first one in the theaters. It was pretty good. I mean, it wasn't the greatest movie, but it was fun. Had a cool ending. But like Hellcat says, this one changes things all up. Really goes in a stupid direction. The only thing really redeemable about this is that the puppet doll thing is creepy as shit looking. But every cliche you could possibly think of just pretty much happens. So do not recommend. Backwoods Bloodbath, Curse of the Black Hodag, from 2007, which we obviously watched on a crappy horror movie pack. So even though there's parts of this movie that aren't really that great, overall, the movie is kind of fun to watch. There's some random moments of dialogue between the characters where it's just like, what? Like, what is happening right now? And it's that entertainment that really makes this movie a fun watch. I don't recommend it in terms of, hey, check out this horror movie, but I recommend it if you're looking for some ridiculous shit to have a great time with. Maybe have a group of friends over and watch it together.
Exactly. We pretty much watch all of these crappy horror movie packs in bed, like when we're, kind of ready to sleep, but not 100%. And this is perfect for something like that when it's, getting late, or maybe you're playing on your phone a little bit while it's going, stuff like that. Because some of the funny dialogue really is the only standout part of it. A lot of the characters are very cliche, oh, we're obsessed with sports, or oh, I'm the arty weird kid. There's a, oh, I'm the cool girl, and then there's like a, oh, I kind of sleep around girl, all these just generic cliches. But again, like Psycho said, somehow it's still fun. So it's hard to recommend. It's both good and bad. It's a double-edged sword. Watch at your own risk, I guess. Borderland from 2007, which Psycho rented from Netflix on disc. I realized about 10 or 15 minutes in that I felt like I had already seen this, and I went and looked at my Netflix, and it turned out that I had. I also gave it way too generous a rating back in the day when I first watched it. This movie was, I don't get it. I was super bored and annoyed by the characters and their decision making and just everything. I don't know. I feel like even, I guess there's a cult. The movie doesn't make it feel like it's very, very culty. I don't know. I might even be confused. I know I left the room to go like make dinner and do other random things while this was going, so obviously I was super into it. I really can't recommend this movie. Sorry.
So this was part of the 2007 8 Films to Die For. I'm not sure if it was part 3 or part 4, 8 Films to Die For, Harfest, whatever. I just know it was from 2007, 8 Films to Die For. Somehow it was the only one that I didn't watch for some reason. And when I was going back and looking at things, I was like, wait a minute, I missed one. So again, completionist, I rented it. And boy, just wasn't into this one. Randomly has Ryder Strong and Sean Astin in it. Did not even know that until the credits were rolling in the beginning and we were both like, what? That was interesting. But I do not recommend this one. I'm sure there's other movies in that Horror Fest series that are much better than this one. The Stepfather from 1987, which we watched on Tubi, and apparently it's also on Shudder. Absolutely love this movie. I've only actually seen it 2 or 3 times or something, but I really love this movie. I think it's really cool. And I was actually just saying that I feel like this is one of those movies that even though it's from the 80s, this is really still relatable in today's world with cell phones and cameras and everything. Like, I feel like this could still possibly happen. This guy could still pull this off and go around and change his identity and things and be this stepfather serial killer guy. Terry O'Quinn knocks it out of the park. He does a great job. Only really ever seen him in Lost. He's awesome. 1000% go check this movie out if you have not seen it.
Yes, the premise of this is definitely very creepy. The idea of having someone new come in your family and have such a horrendous past and just have, just be unhinged like this and be able to put on a complete mask and hide it from you. Like, it's scary. Terry O'Quinn does execute the role of a stepfather extremely well. He's a super likable guy, but then when he snaps, whoa, like, watch the hell out. He is out there and it's awesome. I definitely do recommend this movie. Stepfather 2 from 1989, which we also watched on Tubi. As much as I like the original The Stepfather, I had never seen either of the sequels, so when we saw that all 3 of them were on Tubi, we thought, hey, let's watch them all. Obviously, this is a step down, but we do still have Mr. O'Quinn as the stepfather. That elevates this a little bit. It does have a cheesier, almost like made-for-TV movie feel to it, but having Caroline Williams in it also helped because her character is sort of peppy and funny and sprightly, and the dynamic between her and the stepfather character is pretty interesting. I also had no clue that little Jonathan Brandis was in this. Rest in peace. I used to have such a crush on him when I was little. So that was extra awesome too. I do recommend it, even though I know the twists and the storyline and stuff, it's all so obvious and everything. The script is not as good as the first one, period, but it's still a pretty good movie. It's a decent watch.
I agree with everything that Hellcat said. The storyline and everything is just pretty hokey, and obviously it was going to be a little bit hokey because of the way the first one ends and how they have to figure out how to bring him back and that sort of thing. But the thing that really just makes the whole thing work is just Terry O'Quinn and his portrayal of the stepfather. If it wasn't for that, then this movie would be much, much worse. But this movie, because of him, it's actually fairly decent. It's a fairly average horror movie, and I recommend this one. Watch Me from 2006, which we watched on a crappy horror movie pack. This is just another forgettable crappy horror movie pack movie for me. This one really was just kind of trying to do like a Ring type ripoff. Just kind of missed the mark for me, so I do not recommend it.
This was definitely pretty cliche and trying to be a lot of other things, like Psycho said, it was you watch the video and then you pass it to someone else, or, you watch the video and you die, and there's a, ghastly white ghost woman that shows up when it's time for you to die, except instead of having black hair like she does in all the Asian horror, she has bright red hair, and, it's pretty standard by the numbers stuff, but I bumped up my rating just a little half a star because of the explanation at the end as to why the video affects some people one way and then affects other people a different way. I only put it like that so as not to spoil anything, though I can't really recommend that you go out and watch this, so I don't know if it's worth staying out of spoiler territory, but it's definitely not the worst crappy horror movie pack movie that we've seen. It was somewhat well made. It was just sort of generic. Leviathan from 1989, which we watched on, you guessed it, Tubi. This was another movie that I saw was about to expire. I seriously just clicked on it randomly and Psycho was like, what'd you put that on for? And dude, I ended up loving this movie. I thought it was so effing cool. I loved the cast. I loved the characters. I loved the effects by Stan Winston. Some of that stuff was so effing gross. There's like body horror stuff, and some of the effects reminded me of the wild crap you see in the movie Society, which is also from the 80s. I mean, I don't know what I expected from the synopsis or whatever, but I just really didn't think I was gonna like it nearly as much as I did. There was something at the end that bothered me. I was like, oh, that is such a drag, such a bummer. But overall, this was so much fun to watch, and I definitely recommend it.
I agree with everything that Hellcat just said. I had never seen this movie before. We just randomly turned it on and it had, people in it we knew, and, Peter Weller, RoboCop. I mean, I watched RoboCop all the time as a kid. Daniel Stern, Ernie Hudson. I'm like, wow, what is this movie that I've never heard of?
Oh, and Meg Foster, who was also in Stepfather 2. Yeah, we keep seeing a lot of her crazy eyes on accident.
The vibe of the movie really kind of reminded me of Alien, only underwater instead of in space. I mean, that's more of a compliment than a complaint. I do feel like towards the end there are some random things that happen that I'm just not, I don't know, I kind of feel like maybe it went into hokey territory just a tad. Overall though, I really enjoyed this one. It was a big surprise for me and that I've never even heard of it, and I recommend it. Check it out. Stepfather 3 from 1992, which we watched on Tubi. So yeah, we had to finish the Stepfather trilogy of films. Unfortunately, Terry O'Quinn is not in this one, and it shows. With not having seen this before, I was under the assumption that the stepfather in this movie was a completely different character. They just wrote a whole new, character, a whole new storyline, and just left the Terry O'Quinn stepfather somewhere else. But no, this is supposed to be the same guy, and spoiler alert, he just gets some kind of plastic surgery or something like that. I don't know. It's ridiculous. So it's supposed to be the same guy, but I mean, I could pick it apart all day, but it's just without Terry O'Quinn, it really shows. I don't know. I just really couldn't get into this one. It felt like it went on forever. It was way too long. I don't know. Just do not recommend it. Sorry. The other two, much better. Obviously, the first one, but the second one's much better than this one.
The plastic surgery stuff Psycho was mentioning, it's just, I get it. It's a way to bring the character back. I bring it up again because why is he taller and younger and way thinner? And just, it's like you're reaching too much, and that lack of logic and believability just kind of automatically rubs the viewer the wrong way. I agree. They should have just, if they wanted to continue making these films, which this is the last one in the series, they remade Stepfather, but as far as these sequels, this is it, which, knock on wood, because Lord knows, if anybody was going to make it, they would make it now, when few people have original thoughts anymore in the horror realm. It just feels wrong from the get-go. In addition to that, I know that I said the second Stepfather movie had a little bit of a TV movie feel, but this one full on 100% does, and that's because it was. I was reading in some of the reviews on Letterboxd that it was made for HBO, and it shows. Yes, there's some nudity and there's blood and all that jazz, but the dialogue, the acting, just the overall feel and look of the film, it's clear that this was just made for TV. And yeah, I have no idea why it had to be so long. It was really dragging out. Again, bumped this up a half star due to the wood chipper at the end of the movie. If you're gonna watch Stepfather 1 and Stepfather 2, you might as well watch Stepfather 3. I'll recommend it. But if you either don't give a crap about these movies at all, or you really, really like the original, staying away from this sequel would not be a bad thing.
I just wanted to add one more thing. So they obviously made the remake Stepfather, which was absolutely atrocious. But while we were watching these movies, I was thinking, hey, instead of them doing a remake to the Stepfather, they should have just made a whole new movie and called it Stepmother. I feel like there's so many unexplored things you could do with that idea that doing a remake of Stepfather is just kind of dumb. You've already done Stepfather. Do something else.
Yes, and they even had an opening to do something like that because at the end of Stepfather 3, the Season Hubley character woman that he was like having an affair with or whatever, she was acting all weird. Like she was being all shady and acting like she was sort of upset that what happened. It's like they could have even taken something with her character and done something with it. So that's actually a really cool idea. As always, we thank you so much for watching. Leave us a comment if you have any horror movie recommendations and we will add them to our watch list. Until next time.